Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala ahlihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum. Alright, so I'm not a big fan of schools. Those of you who know me can understand the irony behind that statement. I'm a principal of a school. But in a lot of ways, schooling for me was a complete disaster. When I was a kid, I was the quiet kid, okay? The kid who no one really paid attention to because I didn't cause any problems, okay? I was in the back of the class doing my work in 5 minutes, turning it in and then going to sleep. I was voted class sleeper, okay? That was my experience basically K through 12, okay? I remember one teacher out of my entire 12 years of K through 12 education. I remember only one teacher. And I remember him because he actually one day asked us to stay after class, and he just kind of talked to me like a human being. He recognized that I was a person. And he said, "Hey, how's life?" To me, you know, being the quiet kid who had never spoken to any of his teachers throughout his school, this was kind of shocking. So I sat there and I said, "It's pretty good. How about you?" He's like, "It's good." And then we started to actually have a conversation, which was so rare in my schooling experience. And so for me, when I went into university, I came in touch with one professor who literally changed my life. The professor was a geography professor. And I had no idea what I wanted to do after I graduated, but I knew that I wanted to major in geography and to take every single one of his courses, which I did, okay? And I ended up traveling for a month around Mexico with him as well. His name is Dr. Byron Augustine. I'm still in touch with him to this day. I met him in 1994, okay? He basically opened my eyes to real education. And simultaneously, I had spent the first K through 12, basically first 18 years of my life, disconnected from Allah, disconnected from even hearing the word Allah on a daily basis. You go through your entire education, I want you to think about how profound this is, and this is the reason why I choose to be in Islamic school versus a public school as an administrator, although I can make a lot more money, quite frankly, in public school, but I choose to be in Islamic school because an education where you go day in and day out without even the mention of Allah is a disaster. It's a spiritual disaster. And it was for me. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do now. Because once I met Dr. Augustine, simultaneously, I was forced to become the president of our college MSA, University MSA, because there were, quite frankly, no Muslims there. And I had to do it even though I knew nothing about Islam. So I had to basically learn. And through that learning, I discovered life. I mean, I discovered who I'm supposed to be as a human being. And so, once I graduated and I kind of fell into education, I realized that, you know what, my goal is to give, when I became a teacher, my goal is to give every student of mine the experience that I never had in education, as a teacher in my classroom, and now as a principal throughout a school system. Okay. Now, one thing I want to clarify is that schooling isn't the same as education. Okay? There's a difference. Schooling is based on order, using control and fear. Do this, do that. Don't do this, don't do that. If you do what I ask you not to do, this is step 1 punishment, this is level 2 punishment, this is level 3 punishment. Okay? That works great for prisons. Okay? Not so much for education. Okay? Education is about growth through love, patience, mercy, and care. It's about growth. It's about seeing kids grow. And kids are kids, like Atif said. They're not fully developed yet. Right? So they're going to make mistakes. So when they make mistakes, you have to continue to work with them. Through love, through patience, through mercy. And that is the prophetic example. Right? What was the Prophet ﷺ described as? in the Qur'an? Mercy. Okay? A mercy. A rahmah. That's what he was, and that's what he exemplified. And in schools, that's what we have to start exemplifying, is mercy and forgiveness. And it's so amazing how one conversation can change the behavior of a student versus a detention, where they sit there and do nothing. I quite frankly hate detention. And although a lot of people want me to use it, I refuse to use it, okay? Because I think conversation and actual human conversation works much better than that. Now, the problem, okay, with not liking schools is that schools are a part of our culture. They're embedded. They're not going anywhere, okay? That's just a part of our life. We wake up, take our kids to school, and go off to work and pick the kids up, and you know, that's the way life works, right? So it's embedded in our culture, okay? So they're not going anywhere, so what's the solution? The solution is to change what happens inside of that school. That's the solution, okay? And that's what I'm trying to promote, okay? Now, here are some ideas for change, okay? Some ideas, how to make schools places of real education, okay? Now, create school cultures based on love, mercy, and excellence, not on rules and punishment, okay? It's all about school culture. It's all about the kind of culture that you create at a school. When you walk into our school, as you walk through the main doors, you'll see a giant mural on the wall on one side and a painting on the other side of the wall. The mural says, a place of inspiration. And the entire wall is full of great quotes, inspiring quotes about life. And that's when you walk into the school. On the other side, you'll see the handprints of every single student, teacher, staff member of the school on the wall, painted on the wall, because that's their place, right? It's their school, okay? It's all of our school. So we want to build schools that are places of love, mercy, and excellence, not about rules and punishment. It's not all about academics, spirituality, physical fitness, character, humanity, leadership. They all count. They all count. When I was a teacher in third grade teacher, I had a young girl who was the most caring young girl I've ever met in my life to this day. Any student felt even a little bit sad, she would recognize it and go over and comfort that child. How special is that quality? How many human beings have that quality? How many great people of this world, so-called leaders and people that are memorialized and honored around the world, have even that simple quality that this 8-year-old child had? And I'm sitting there in the office with the child and the mother is screaming at the child because she didn't pass a standardized test at 8 years old. And she is crying her eyes out. And I'm just looking at the mother in complete shock. You're missing the big picture. You're just missing it. This girl has a heart that doesn't compare. No one's heart compares to hers. And you're worried about one little test? I mean, come on. So all this stuff matters, and it's important to build it inside of our students. Redefining intelligence and helping students find their genius. Everyone has a genius. Everyone. Allah created all of us with a genius. Human genius is as common as dirt. That's what John Taylor Gatto says. Okay? So that's what we're trying to do, is redefine intelligence. Intelligence doesn't mean you can do good on a test. Some people just don't do good on a test. But you know what? You give them a paintbrush and they will paint a masterpiece. Okay? You give them a basketball and, you know, it's Michael Jordan out there, right? I have a seventh grader who's, you know, you're going to see him in the NBA one day. He's a baller, okay? Anyway, next, let's go back to honoring and investing in our teachers. Unfortunately, the teaching profession now is something that's looked down upon, and that's a complete disaster, okay? And that's a disaster for our society in America. That's a disaster, because teachers go into teaching because they care about people, and that's very honorable. Now, so we need to reinvest in them. There's a lot more I can get into this about, but we need to reinvest in them. That's why I created the website, transcendentteacher.com, so I could highlight these stories of these great teachers, or what I call transcendent teachers, that basically go around changing kids' lives. Okay? Next, focus on learning by doing. Okay? We learn by doing. That's what John Dewey said many, many years ago. Okay? And that's what we have to focus on. It's not just about memorizing anymore. I can Google it. Who cares? Right? You want to ask a question, I can figure it out in 30 seconds. Okay? You learn by actually doing things, by creating things. Make school more real, allow students to make a difference in the real world. I have so much more to say. 10 minutes is so short. So we had a group of students go out to the MLK parade in March this past week in downtown Houston with a big banner saying, American Muslims honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And you should have seen the reaction of the audience. They were clapping, they were thanking us for being there, and they were thanking us for doing it. Our kids, I want them to have real life experiences, make a change in the real world, not just in the school world. So they're out volunteering almost on a weekly basis. You know, hopefully we'll have them getting into internships at companies and doing all things that are real. Okay? Life and learning isn't a linear process, it's organic. Everyone's different, okay? And I'll end off with the last one. Let's go from standardization to personalization, okay? We're not standard. Human beings don't come with a manual, right? We're different, all of us. And we're all very unique and have gifts and talents in our own ways. And so we have to change schools from trying to pass kids through an assembly line versus trying to bring the best out of all of them. Jazakallahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum.